just pain. It was pain everywhere.
It's about the I gotta say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
Gets the ball, gets back, pulls up for the win. Got it! Detroit basketball.
Oh, Holloman looks the clock, half up for the win.
Oh! The Lions go for it. The Vikings bring it. He's a pass. It's a touchdown to Gibbs.
Javi Baez homered earlier.
First one in the air, deep left field, again! Yes, Tigers win! Bobby is unstoppable!
This is BS Sports.
And away we go. Welcome one, welcome all. We're back, and we have some news. I will say, as one may remember, I was the leader of the Bring Mike McDaniel to Detroit campaign. And unfortunately, we suffered a very bad defeat over the weekend. And by over the weekend, I guess I mean yesterday. I guess it was, most people had the day off, so it's kind of over the weekend. But the Lions, they decided to hire Drew Petzing as their new offensive coordinator. And I have many thoughts, and we'll get into those in a second. But we also got the divisional round, because shout out to the Bears. They were frauds the whole time, and I was vindicated. I don't want to hear, they were in the game. I don't want to hear any of that. They didn't score a single point in the second half until the final 30 seconds of the fourth quarter. That's not being in the game. All right. That's the other team doesn't want to win. All right. We'll get into it later. It's going to be a little bit of a shorter show. I do apologize for going live a little bit later. Work kept me a bit later than I would have liked. So I had to eat dinner, and that led to delay. I had to make dinner, and then that led to delays in eating dinner. And so now here we are. So probably not going to be as long of a show as typical. But anyway, we'll see. I always say that, and then it ends up being like at least a normal length show. So, all right. So yesterday afternoon, maybe around 2:30-ish, maybe a little bit more earlier than that, the Lions announced that they didn't announce, but it was reported on that they were planning on hiring Drew Petzing as their offensive coordinator. Now, Drew Petzing, because most of people didn't know who he was, I didn't know who he was. He was the offensive coordinator for the Arizona Cardinals the last couple of seasons. And that was pretty much the extent of my knowledge about him. And so there was a lot of research that needed to be done. However, the immediate reaction was everybody was not happy. And you go ahead and look at the Lions subreddit. You look at the NFL subreddit. People were just apoplectic that this was the hire that the Lions ended up going with. Now, I want to try to give both sides, the people who think this is the worst hire ever and the people who think this is going to be a pretty good hire. I want to try to give them both some sway. I want to be able to present them with some, I think reasonable, arguments here. So let's start with the positive, because that's always more fun. He likes to run the football. He did have some success in Arizona in 2023 and 24. Taking a look at his numbers here in Arizona, they were last year, 24. They were, hold on, let me see if I can pull these numbers up really quick. I must not have written them down. In rushing yards per game in 2023, the Arizona Cardinals were in fourth in that. They were actually ahead of the Lions in rushing yards per game that season. In 2024, the Cardinals were 7th in rushing yards per game. They were just a little bit behind the Lions in that mark. So back-to-back seasons, relatively recently, Petzing has been able to orchestrate one of the top rushing offenses in the league. So that's good, right? Especially given Detroit's strength is the running game. When they were good, the strength was the running game. And in those last two seasons, and frankly, in the last two successful seasons for Detroit, the Cardinals are right there with you in their ability to run the football. Now, granted, maybe some of that might be due to the fact that they had Kyler Murray, all that, whatever the case might be, they were able to rush the ball pretty successfully. Now, in other stats, 2023, his team was 19th in total yards per game and 24th in points per game. So not good. Now, granted, in 2024, they improved to 12th in points per game and 11th in total yards per game And then 2025, they were just terrible. Now, to be fair, Mike McDaniel had a similar kind of stat line where 23, 24, well, 22, 23, I should say. Dolphins had some really high-level offenses, high-level stats, and then 24, 25, the numbers don't look as good. That's not to say that I think Mike McDaniel is the exact same as this coordinator, but it is to say that, sometimes the rankings on these things don't tell you the full story one way or the other. I think everyone would agree, myself included, Mike McDaniel was the A-plus hire that we wanted to see. But that didn't happen. Now, here's my problem with this hire, and it has a little less to do with whether this is going to work or not. Problem number one is that the Lions fan base needed a spark. They needed something to bring them back, to unite them. The vibes amongst the fan base are as low as they have ever been. People are down on Brad Holmes, people are down on Dan Campbell, and they needed a surefire thing. They needed that splash. Whether that's the right thing to do, obviously, that is sort of out of the question in my mind, but nobody would have disagreed that Mike McDaniel was the wrong move. Even if it didn't work, nobody would have said, looking back, that was the wrong move. A lot of people right now are saying this is the wrong move. On the other point, number two, the fact that they didn't hire McDaniel and seemed to report that he might not have been a good fit. I guess, these comments, that were reported on by somebody at ESPN, I can't remember his name. It's hard to say what was meant by that, I guess, because him not being a good fit could mean that, he was looking to be a head coach, or he wanted to completely reorchestrate the offense, like in a way that would be contrary to what Dan Campbell wants to do. Maybe, but if they're coming at it and they're like, okay, well, you did in Miami, what you did in San Francisco wouldn't fit here. I don't see that. I don't understand what that could be. But again, these reports are in a way meant to gin up idiots like me to talk about it. So it is what it is. Now, to kind of wrap up this shorter segment, with a little bit of maybe some conjecture or just observations among fan behavior. Most people, when Morton was hired, thought he would be at least kind of decent. I mean, I don't think anybody was jumping out of their seat, but people thought, okay, well, he has familiarity. He was the passing game coordinator under Ben Johnson. You're going to get a pretty similar, maybe a little bit more vanilla style offense with John Morton. But most people were not thinking the offense was going to be absolutely terrible. That just wasn't on people's minds. And don't trick yourself into thinking, oh my gosh, everybody was predicting that he was going to be terrible. No, I remember how fans were. I remember how people talked about it. Even into this year, and myself included, nobody was talking about how he was just terrible. But obviously, things change. Right now, people are saying that Petzing is going to be terrible, which means maybe he's going to be decent. Maybe he's going to be like a reverse of John Morton, where basically everybody thought John Morton was going to be at least decent, and he turned out to be terrible. Petzing, everybody thinks he's going to be terrible, which means he could be decent. Little reverse psychology. The old Michael Scott win, win, win. Now, with that being said, I think ultimately your belief in this offensive coordinator hire is really just a barometer for your belief in Dan Campbell. If you don't believe in the hire, I think it is and maybe some people will be willing to just admit it. I think it is an admission that you just don't really believe in Dan Campbell at this point, which is fine. You're allowed to not. I mean, like last year certainly didn't add to your belief level. I can't see how it could have. 2024 I guess the Commanders game, the playoff game, that certainly couldn't have helped you. And obviously we don't have to relitigate the NFC Championship game a few years ago. But sure, like if your belief level of Dan Campbell is very low, then it doesn't really matter who they hired. Even if they hired McDaniel, it wouldn't matter. Like short of them bringing back Ben Johnson, like there was not much that could have been done. Now, I still do believe in Dan Campbell. Now, that belief waned. It went down from where it was before, but I still do believe. And it's funny because I know a lot of people will say, well, he's never hired a good offensive coordinator outside of Ben Johnson. So it's like, okay, well, so outside of the time he did hire a good coordinator, he's never hired a good coordinator. Brilliant observation, I guess. It's kind of like when people say, well, Brad Holmes was never drafted well after the first round, except for all the times that he does. And then okay. Yeah, like it's just it's just a weak critique. We don't have to litigate those points exactly. But now onto my own thoughts on this. I do like that he was able to create some good rushing offenses with Arizona. He will have a much better situation here in Detroit. And frankly, I think that's going to be the marker. And, I know a lot of people said this about John Morton. He was with the Jets when he was the offensive coordinator and they were terrible. I think this is a little bit different given that he's actually recently been an offensive coordinator and also did have some modicum of success, especially rushing the football with what we can only describe as one of the most putrid offensive rosters in the NFL. And just a pitiful, culture and a bad head coach. You're bringing him into a much better spot. This is an opportunity for him to do better. He was an understudy of Kevin Stefanski, who is somebody that I would have liked to have as OC, but obviously he took a head coaching job. I'm not going to say that this is the best hire ever because I told you I wanted Mike McDaniel and there pretty much wasn't anybody else that was on the radar. But I'm also not going to lie to you and say that I think this is the worst hire in the universe because I didn't know who he was 2 days ago. And neither did you. So, Dan Campbell seems to believe in him. Brad Holmes seems to believe that Dan Campbell in this operation. We'll have to see how it plays out. And, if it doesn't work, then maybe Campbell's not the guy for the job. If it does work, then everyone will be happy about it. So, there it is. Mike McDaniel is our best candidate if we keep Gibbs as our feature starter running back. I think he's going to stay as the starter running back regardless of who we would have brought in. But yeah, I think people, and this is unfortunately maybe something that I kind of fed into a little bit. People got the idea of one name in mind, and that name being Mike McDaniel. And the problem is, the last thing you want to do is put all your eggs in the Mike McDaniel basket, and then oops, he ends up going and taking the Pittsburgh job or the Buffalo job or whatever. And then you're left with whoever is even out there that's available. I think the reason for the timing of the hire is that, look, the Lions didn't want to wait for him to have to go through all of these options when they knew, and as anybody would know, that of course the head coaching job in Buffalo is going to be more coveted, or the head coaching job in Baltimore or wherever. They had to take a shot at somebody, and we also got to remember, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. If Drew Petzing is good, certainly that'll be an upgrade from last year. And frankly, if he's just good, you're right back where you need to be. You're right in a way, you're right back to, Super Bowl contention. Because you have elite players, you have a very good head coach and a very good GM. You don't need to have the greatest, coordinator. What you need to do is have the greatest overall, thing going. It's the same thing. You don't need each individual part of your team to be the greatest. Jared Goff is not the greatest quarterback. Jahmyr Gibbs, he might be one of the greatest running backs in the league right now. But Amon-Ra or Jameson Williams, neither of them are probably the greatest wide receiver, but you put them all together and it becomes the greatest organization. So, and look, maybe this is the time for this guy to, really show himself. I mean, you want to bring up Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson was hired by Matt Patricia. So even if you want to say, like, initially, I mean, obviously he was promoted by Campbell, but like, even if you want, like, I don't think it's as easy to just look at the stats and say, okay, this guy for sure is going to fail. And it's not that it's a bad thing to do. You should always look at the stats. I mean, obviously the numbers this year were terrible, and the numbers in 23 overall were not good. But what choice do we have? Are we just going to sit here and just say, well, we're not going to watch the games next year? No. So then you might as well just say, okay, let's see what this guy's got. If he doesn't have what he's got, what we need, then we'll have to get rid of him, and we might have to get rid of the guy who hired him. Is what it is. I guess I just choose to go at it from a not depressing perspective. Like, I don't know. All right. Sorry if I'm a little low energy. Obviously, longer day at work, and also I got a little bit of a headache right now, but we'll push through here. So let's get into the divisional round real quick. We'll do a little bit of a recap. So Buffalo screwed themselves, but they did also get screwed. That game was just a nightmare for Buffalo fans because they go down and they're down double digits at the half because of some nonsense that Josh Allen, I don't know in what universe he was living where he thought running around with that football like that and then just throwing it behind him. I don't know in what universe he thought that was a good idea. Now, on top of the fact that he had 2 interceptions in the game overall, it's so funny to me because I love Josh Allen. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But if Jared Goff played a game like that, I guarantee you, Lions fans would be calling for his head. They'd be saying he's not a winning quarterback. He can't win the big game. He's a lousy player. We need to go out and make a trade. Josh Allen does it year in and year out. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't remember. When was Josh Allen's last Super Bowl appearance? Because I remember Jared Goff's Super Bowl appearance, but I don't remember Josh. So Josh Allen, year in and year out, can go out there and play some garbage football games in the playoffs, despite having great regular seasons, and then not a peep from the media, not a peep from fans. Maybe now fans are starting to talk about it, and now they got a new coach, or they're gonna have a new coach. We don't know who it is. To me, it's just like, what Josh Allen can go out there and just do whatever. Like every year, I feel bad for the guy. I want him to win, but then he loses, and he loses in a way that it's like, okay, like you did a lot of this to yourself. So it's unfortunate. We would say that about Goff because the Sporting players are 10 times better. Sure, he's got a better wide receiver room and, probably a better defense, but it's still like Josh Allen is still universally received as an untouchable. I'm like, I don't understand why it's like unique as if like no other quarterback has a supporting class like Jared Goff's does. I mean, most good teams have good supporting classes. So I don't know, man. I mean, like, I like Josh Allen. I do. I'm not saying he's bad by any means, but just the double standards, I think sometimes are frustrating. He can do a lot, but I mean, you can't tell me he didn't lose this game for them a couple of times. Like, now, granted, he wasn't at fault at the very end. That was the fault of the referees completely screwing them. That is, I think, what is most upsetting about this is that it wasn't just that he didn't play well. like, he also got totally screwed by that awful call. I mean, it's so funny. Like, back in the day, when the Calvin Johnson rule became a thing, we didn't know. Like, everyone was like, "Oh, what's a catch?" Okay, well, it's when you catch the ball and you complete the process. So you fall to the ground, you still have the football, right? Like, you complete the process, whatever that means. Now we see guys do that, but if the ball is ripped from them after that is done, then it's a pick. Seemingly only when it's Buffalo, but if I'm Sean McDermott, like, that call very well cost him his job. Because if that's a catch, they're in field goal range, they're in the AFC Championship game and not Denver. And we also live in the worst of both worlds, because not only do we not get to see Buffalo in the AFC Championship game, we also don't get to see Bo Nix for the Denver Broncos in the AFC Championship game because he gets hurt. His season's over. So now we got Jared Stidham and Drake May in what will probably be a complete snooze fest of a game. So, if they would have won this game, if Buffalo would have won this game, I think the Super Bowl would have been theirs in essence, or at least they would have been able to make it, because, Drake May was turning the ball over a lot in that game. We'll talk about that in just a second. But that was, I don't know. Maybe in the AFC they just like turn the ball over a lot. Like, seems like that was like that's the name of the game in the AFC is everybody just loves to turn the ball over. So he wouldn't have to run like that and be careless if he had Amon-Ra and JMO. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, like, he did plays like this when he did have better supporting casts. When he had Steph Diggs on his team. Now, granted, again, nobody's saying he ever had like two great wide receivers like JMO and Amon-Ra, but I mean, like, we don't know how much of it is him and how much of it is the cast that he's trying to do too much. Because I mean, there's a lot of guys who try to do too much, who try to do a lot for their team. I don't want to say necessarily too much, that don't do this. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, he had a probably worse supporting cast, or at least comparable, the last couple of years where he was winning Super Bowls, and he beat Josh Allen. So, I mean, they gave Lamar Jackson more. They gave him Derrick Henry. He's doing the same thing. I know he's a different quarterback. He's not in the playoffs, but it's another one. Anyway, yeah, I would say more about the Broncos, but look, they got away with murder, and they lost their quarterback. So I can't even say anything about their Super Bowl chances at this point because they're pretty much not there. I mean, unless Jared Stidham pulls a Nick Foles, I don't see it. I don't see that Jared Stidham is going to elevate this team any more than Bo Nix. So, we're not going to talk about the Seattle-San Fran game. It was a blowout. San Fran didn't belong. They were way too injured. George Kittle went down the week before. It was bad. Now, I did mention we were going to talk about this game. Houston and New England. CJ Stroud, I got to ask you a question. What is it that you do here? Because ever since his rookie year, he has just deteriorated. Now, granted, I don't want to beat up on poor CJ too much because this offseason, what they did to his offensive line was criminal. It was absolutely criminal. They took his entire offensive line and just got rid of it. For no other reason than maybe they just hate the guy. Maybe CJ's a jerk. I don't know. He doesn't seem like a jerk. But despite, let's forget about the offensive line for one point. You throw 4 interceptions, and I think he had 5 total turnovers because I believe he fumbled. What do you want me to say to that, CJ? I mean, like, that is on you. You have an all-world defense. You have an elite, a defense that is really hard to score on. And granted, New England scored 28 times, but they got 5 turnovers. So, they had plenty of opportunities. So, You hate it. You hate it for CJ, but maybe it's just Ohio State quarterbacks. You know, we thought in his rookie year, we thought maybe this was the Ohio State quarterback that was going to work, but yet another one in the line of OSU quarterbacks that just doesn't develop in the NFL. I don't know if it's like, I don't know if it's the colors Ohio State wears. I don't know if it's the weather. I don't know what it is, but they don't seem to play well when they get here. And as far as the Patriots go, Drake May played a fine game, not an amazing game, but because of the Denver Broncos situation, because of that injury, they're basically in the Super Bowl. Now, granted, again, I feel like I say granted a lot on the show. They can't get ahead of themselves. They can't, overlook the Broncos' elite defense because it is an elite defense. But they, for all intents and purposes, are going to the Super Bowl. So, for all of you who didn't like New England before, well, they're back. Now, granted, it's not Tom Brady, so maybe this is not as long sustaining as that once was. But New England is certainly back. I did not anticipate them coming out of the gate like this. I didn't think that Steph Diggs and friends was going to be the jumping off point for this Patriots team. I really didn't, but they have surprised me big time. So it's good for them. I can't really hate them. It's not like the Belichick years where just like every year it was like, will this team ever die? And now it is with great pleasure that I announce to you all that the Bears are finally dead. Here's the thing. This game is going to be muddied by the fact that Caleb Williams made an amazing throw in the final 10 seconds of that game on 4th down and 4. And what is not going to be talked about is how awful he was playing for most of the game. Because you look at his final stat line and you're like, oh, that's pretty good. 2 touchdowns, 257 yards. But he threw the ball 42 times. He threw 3 interceptions, one of which led to the game-losing drive. I cannot stand this Bears team. To me, felt like a team that all year long was playing with house money. That they were just, they just stumbled their way into wins. And I think they finally stumbled their way out of a game. Finally. Now, granted, the Rams did not look that great either. I mean, they went most of the game not scoring. And Matthew Stafford didn't have a single touchdown, rushing or otherwise. He had -1 yards rushing, which is a funny stat. But anyway, I don't have much more to say other than I'm happy that the Bears lost. I am truly happy about that. I was very excited when they lost. When I watched that field goal go in, it was like a dream come true. So, here's the thing, with the Bears, you got to think that in a year's time, a lot can change. They're going to have that first place schedule. Now, I don't like to play the schedule game, but bear with me. They're going to have first place schedule next year. First place in the NFC, so they'll play the first place schedule. They're going to, have a lot more teams on notice for them than might have otherwise. The way they were winning games this year does not feel sustainable. It feels a lot more like the Minnesota Vikings team of a couple of years ago with Kirk Cousins, where they were winning all those one-score games. I mean, even, you know what? Let me just go back and look at some of their games real quick. Just see what I can remember. I don't remember how the Raiders... Didn't the Raiders game end on a blocked field goal or something? Or maybe a miss? I don't remember what it was. The Commanders game, I know, was Jaden Daniels fumbled it, and that led to them being able to win. Don't remember the Saints game. They lost the Ravens game. The Bengals game, that was the stupid Colston Loveland massive touchdown on the final play of the game because that Bengals defense was just that bad. Giants game was the Giants collapsing in the fourth quarter, but they did that every pretty much the whole time, all year long. Vikings was a collapse. Steelers was, I think, a similar collapse. I don't remember, but that was only a 3-point game. Eagles game was just inexcusable play from Philly, but they just looked off balance all year. Packers was the onside kick nonsense. Browns they just killed. Or no, the Packers that was the second Packers game was the onside kick. And then they lost to the 49ers and Lions at the end of the year. I know that it's rich coming from me that the Bears are going to regress, but I don't know, man. Maybe they're going to regress. One can hope. Can I have that? All right. That's all I got. I'm sorry. I'm just real low energy right now, guys. I'm sorry. I don't even know if I want to edit those clips tonight. we might just call it a show and then I'll go from there. But I do want to talk about the conference championship games real quick. So, Patriots, Broncos. So as far as the picks go, I'm pretty much out of it because of the Texans. I picked the Texans to win. Seth picked the Patriots. That pretty much locked me out of any sort of potential complete comeback victory over him. He's going with the Patriots. Yeah, I'm just going to agree. Patriots are probably going to win this game. I alluded to it. Jarrett Stidham is going to be starting for the Broncos. It's not a good matchup. Typically the better quarterback is going to win in any game like that. So for me, somebody's got to win that awful game, and I just got a feeling that Drake May is going to go in and just rip the poor Broncos fans' hearts right out. Or Jarrett Stidham is going to become a folk hero. Either way, should be fun. And Seth is also taking the Seahawks. I'm also just going to agree with him on that. The Rams look kind of out of sorts. Who knows? Who knows what the status of guys like Devontae or who else was kind of banged up in that game? I don't know why Devontae is the only one in my mind. Yeah, so I think the Seahawks probably win this game. Although I do have to consider the fact that it's Ginger quarterback. It's just so weird to me that we could very well that I'm basically predicting that we'll see a Drake May, Sam Darnold Super Bowl. I mean, think about that. The Drake May thing, I guess nobody knew who he was for, until he got into the league. Maybe some people who were from North Carolina knew who he was. Sam Darnold. I mean, I just kind of want to pull up Sam Darnold's numbers here. Or just he's been in the league for how long? Has it been 10 years? No. He was drafted in 2018, so almost 10 years. He went from Jets quarterback who was a complete bust, had one season of over 3,000 yards with the Jets, and it was barely over 3,000. He didn't even play in every game. Played in 13 games, 7-6. Then he was hurt. Final year of the Jets, he was terrible. Then he goes to the Panthers. They were terrible, and he was bad. Another year with the Panthers, he was bad again. He's a backup on San Fran, kind of filled in at times. And then just out of nowhere, Rich Gannon just decides, I want to be good at football again. And he just balls out with Minnesota. He balls out with Seattle. We're not that far removed from the potential of a Sam Darnold Super Bowl MVP. Now, granted, they're going to be without Charbonnet, which is going to be difficult for them. But what a great story that would be. I mean, honestly, I know I make fun of Sam Darnold a lot, but let me just pull up Rich Gannon really quick because I think it's a very similar kind of story. Rich Gannon spent years, over a decade, just kind of all over the place. He was in Minnesota, Washington, Kansas City, and he was just a nobody. And then just completely out of nowhere in the late 90s, early 2000s, he just takes over in Oakland. Almost wins the Super Bowl. We're seeing a very similar thing with Sam Darnold, maybe. And that was when Gannon was in his 30s. With Darnold, he's in his late 20s. Yeah, he's still he's like entering his prime, right? Like this is his prime right now, what we're seeing. Maybe it was, you put a lot of responsibility on a 21-year-old to come in and run your offense in New York of all places. Maybe it's just a bad spot. And it's the Jets. They're infamous for ruining quarterbacks. I don't know, man. That's all I got. I am so low energy right now, guys. I'm sorry. I like to put as much as I can into these shows. But yeah, I don't know. I had a root canal yesterday, and maybe that's what's kind of hurting me right now. But that's pretty much it for the show. I didn't have anything else on my show notes. So if you did enjoy this somehow, I'm just totally being mean to myself. If you did enjoy this, please hit the like and the subscribe button. We're live normally at 7 o'clock on Tuesday evenings. We live again next week, break it all down, all the conference championship results and all that. And hopefully I'll be better rested by that point. So I do appreciate anybody for stopping by and listening in. Have yourselves a great rest of your night. I'm not sure if I'll be uploading clips. I don't know. Honestly, I might not even edit tonight. Like I'm just completely out of it right now. So appreciate you guys for listening in, and I'll see you all next Tuesday. Have a good night. See you later. Goodbye. See ya.